It's a transparency issue, and the infrastructure hasn't been there as well.
Infrastructure is not there. And of course, this is just the latest thing, but if you look at, how is China responding overall? This is a government that's terrified of its own people. And so Xi Jinping, who is, trying to become president for life, contrary to the Chinese tradition, he has completely shut down civil society, independent lawyers, independent journalists, activists. There just is no more permitted dissent. Even social media, which for a brief period was interesting, it was kind of within the great Chinese firewall, so which was designed to prevent Chinese people from talking to the outside world, but they could talk to each other, and that's dangerous if you're a dictator. So they've now shut that down. And the epicenter of this repression is Xinjiang, the northwestern region, which is home to about 13 million, mostly Uyghur and other Turkic Muslims. And the government has now detained, roughly 1 million of them, probably more, for forced re-education, which in essence means, until you abandon Islam, until you abandon your culture, until you speak Mandarin, until you worship Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party. And so you can imagine how this goes. 1 million adults is, call it 10% of the adult population. Kids are being orphaned and they're shipped off to school for indoctrination. So it is a horrible situation. On top of this, they've built a surveillance state, the likes of which the world has never seen. And Human Rights Watch was actually able to get a hold of these handheld devices that the police use in Xinjiang. And we reverse engineered the app to see, so what information are they collecting? And there are like 11 pages of data on people, some obvious biographic data, but also things like, do you enter your house from the front or the back? Because you enter from the back, that's suspicious. How much electricity do you use? And all these things that they think might be indicative of independence or contact with the outside world. And that is then used to determine who gets detained. And people literally have barcodes on their doors. So the police can just go up and figure out, who's there and decide, do you detain the person who's showing up at your checkpoint or not? So this is
sounds like a dystopian movie.
It's totally dystopian. They use, there's a lot of talk these days about facial recognition technology. In Xinjiang, the video cameras are pervasive. It makes London look like, a privacy paradise.
Right, because we have a few here.
Yes, no, exactly. London is notorious for it, but Xinjiang is worse. And they combine this with the use of facial recognition technology, so they can just track you, and all of this data is added into the individualized account that they have for every person, which the police can then access through these devices. And so it's actually it's a feat of big data analysis, because they throw all this data together, but they now are developing the ability to process it, and through this decide who is dangerous in their political terms or not. Wow. And it's obviously super subjective, but the consequence can be detention for indefinite detention, really, until they decide that you are no longer a threat.
Right.
So that's what's happening in Xinjiang, and it's just a matter of time before that is spread out throughout China. They've had this thing called the social credit system, which is being rolled out. It's supposed to be implemented by the end of this year. It may take a little bit longer. But the idea is that everybody is assessed currently according to social criteria. Are you a good neighbor? Do you jaywalk? Do you take out the garbage? Things like that. Yeah. Easy to add political criteria to this. But the idea is to use day-to-day incentives to control people. So, you only need detention in the extreme cases. Most people, if they want access to a passport, they want access to the fast train, if they want access to a good school for their kids, they've got to have a decent social credit score. And if not, they're stuck in the back. And so they try to take, the little things that everybody wants in life and say, you're not going to get it unless you behave according to our criteria. And that, they're going to do that for the whole country.
There's a show on Netflix called Black Mirror, and there was an episode where everyone has their social score above their head when you look at a phone, and you can see who's highly ranked and lowly ranked, and the low ranks are just off the grid, and the high ranks get all the cool parties and all the cool service and everything. Yeah. And it was scary to people. And now they're putting that into place.
They're putting that into place, and I mean that's going to be all of China. They're not yet at the point where they're using your Google Glass so you can get the scores. I look at you, but in essence, with these handheld apps, they're going to be able to do that.
So it's not about having money or a passport or being a citizen. It's what that score is, and that score can, like you said, at the extreme be something bad, but you don't need to have the extreme to control people. It's that threat
Most
of-
people just want the day-to-day goods of ordinary life.
And this is kind of like what the Stasi used to do by reporting on everyone, but it wasn't necessarily numerified or big dataed. It was like people were spying, okay, this person is doing this. Or
No, you would have a physical file, but somebody would have to go to Stasi headquarters and read it.
Right.
And it was slow, and it was, Whereas here, it's available to any police officer on the street, and the data is much more comprehensive because they don't rely necessarily on human informants. You can get those as well, but a lot of this is just data that's available through observation.